Today, we are continuing on with our ADHD series here on the Better Belly podcast. And today, specifically, I'm going to be talking about something I just do not hear people talk about in the ADHD community, and that is the MAOA gene mutation. This gene mutation is hugely implicated in ADHD. You do not automatically have the MAOA gene mutation if you have ADHD, but if you do have this gene mutation, you can be set up for symptoms like poor focus, carb cravings, difficulty staying asleep, depression, chocolate cravings, having a tremendous amount of energy one moment and then none the next, having great focus one moment and then none the next, having difficulty controlling your temper, and generally craving things that will give you a dopamine hit, be that caffeine, sugar, high risk things, whatever's going to give you that dopamine, you're going to crave it. So if you are looking for ways to support your ADHD that can literally make it easier to manage without needing simply more systems or more medications, then this episode is for you. Hey friend, welcome to the Better Belly podcast. If you're currently trying endless supplements, doctor visits, and diet changes to heal your mystery symptoms, you are in the right place. We're here to solve the real root causes behind your gut, hormones, skin, sleep, and brain concerns, literally anything and everything in your body. My name is Allison Jordan. I'm a functional medicine practitioner that has supported over 150 clients just like you to heal problems that no one has been able to fix. You don't need a perfect diet or a random supplement you found on Instagram to heal. You need a proven system that heals your whole body from the inside out. That's what I'm here to share with you, episode by episode. It's time to make health easy again. And just as a reminder, this information is not meant to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your own health practitioner before you make any changes to your health. Okie dokie. So before we jump in, I want to make some disclaimers about today's episode so you can receive it in its full spirit. Meaning, number one, genes are not destiny. Even though we're going to talk about genes, I think there's just a prevailing belief or feeling out there currently that if you have a genetic problem like the MTHFR gene mutation, you're stuck or you're broken and you're never going to be fixed or feel normal. That is not what I'm talking about on today. I'm not like you have the MAOA gene mutation and you're screwed. By no means. I'm not going to be saying, oh, your genes made you ADHD. There's nothing you can do about it. That's not the takeaway from today's episode. But today's episode, I want you to actually feel empowered because with lots of research, we're finding something called epigenetics. Epigenetics means we can turn genes on and off. We can make genes more functional or less functional based on the environment we put our genes in. And I mean the cellular environment, the environment your body is in that impacts your cellular environment. And so we can actually support our genes to function the best they can. And this is, I love this. I was trying to think of a way to describe this to you guys. I've never thought of this before, but this is like giving a short person or telling a short person to try to cook in a kitchen. And you're not going to say to them, oh, you're never going to be able to cook in here because you can't reach all the stuff in the cabinets. You're never going to be able to cook. No, instead you're saying, okay, like you can't reach some of the stuff in the cabinets. You give them a stool or you move items to a level that they can reach. And the difference now isn't whether or not they can cook in the kitchen, yes or no, but learning ways that tools you can give yourself to function normally as a short person in a kitchen. I guess if you're tall, maybe this won't hit right, but I'm a little short for kitchens. And sometimes it's frustrating that I can't get stuff easily on a second shelf. And yes, I use a stool. I'm a little bitter about it, but I can cook. I can get what I need in any kitchen that I go to. And so similarly with your genes, you're going to learn what could be antagonizing your genes or like maybe it's a gene that's not working fully right. You have a gene mutation, but there's something antagonizing it, literally making it work less well. You can learn how to remove those things and then add in what can support your genes, like a stool for a short person, so that they can work best under any given number of circumstances. So this episode is is more about learning a new set of tools so that you can navigate your proverbial kitchen in a doable way as a proverbial short person, a gene that's just not functioning, not as tall as it would like to be. Lastly, before we get started, I also want to just share that a lot of information I share in this episode, I got from Dr. Ben Lynch's book, Dirty Genes. This is an amazing book. I have linked his book in the show notes. It's an excellent read. And again, the source of a lot of the great lists and sometimes even blurbs that I've shared in this episode. I will try to mention what content, like this is from his book, because I'm definitely not trying to steal any of his work, but it is because of his book, Dirty Genes, that I became aware of the MAOA gene and how it could be impacting my clients, and has really helped in framing for my clients ways that they can support themselves and not just be frustrated or feel like they're failures. Sound great? Okay. So already kind of introduced it a little, but there's a key gene that can create ADHD-like symptoms, which is called MAOA. It's all capitals. If you're trying to think of what am I saying, just capital M, capital A, capital O, capital A. And the primary function of the MAOA gene, according to Dr. Ben Lynch, he writes, the MAOA gene produces the MAOA enzyme. It's very, very clever, which helps you process two key neurotransmitters, dopamine and norepinephrine. These enable you to rev up your body for the stress response. And MAOA also helps you process serotonin, a neurotransmitter that enables you to feel calm and optimistic. So if you've been in the ADHD world for a little while, you know that dopamine gets a lot of talk. It's a lot of it, like dopamine hits, get in your dopamine, and it's related to focus and memory. And so if you can get high enough levels of dopamine consistently as an ADHD person, it can help you kind of stay in one spot, whether that's mentally or physically, be able to focus on something and get it done. And if you're not getting the dopamine, then you're looking around for dopamine hits. You're kind of switching tasks quickly to try and rev up some dopamine hits quickly. You're scrolling social media. You're eating sugar and carbs or food because you're just trying to get that dopamine hit so that you can kind of feel more settled. But the other thing that's really interesting, and this will come into play in one thing I'm going to share today, which is dopamine and norepinephrine. Norepinephrine doesn't get talked about as much with ADHD, but they have a strong relationship because a lot of norepinephrine comes from literally dopamine being converted into norepinephrine. So MAOA being involved in both of these neurotransmitters is super important. The effects of a dirty, what Dr. Ben Lynch calls dirty MAOA, I love the terminology because the reason he chose the word dirty opposed to like gene mutation is that he has seen and is true. He teaches that you can literally have a gene like the MAOA gene and it's perfect. Like there's nothing wrong with it when you do a gene test, but it can act like there's a gene mutation we call it. And he says it acts dirty, and genes can act dirty when there's nutrient deficiencies, certain high levels of toxins, blood sugar imbalances, etc. And so just to say, even if you're listening to this and I don't know, you get a gene test and it says you don't have a dirty or you don't have an MAOA gene mutation, even if that's not true, you could literally still have all these symptoms and potentially have an MAOA gene that's not working optimally. So the point is never like go and get the test done, come back, listen to the episode and decide like, this makes sense or not. But just to be self-aware and to be able to put together in your mind why you might be getting some of your ADHD symptoms and some things that you could do that could practically help. Okay. So he says some of the effects of a dirty MAOA is it can send you up for tremendous mood swings, especially if you also have a dirty MTHFR and or COMT gene, which I'm actually going to be going over next week. So the combination of these three born dirty genes can give you both tremendous energy and focus, but also can make it hard for you to control your temper or rise above irritating situations. And what we're going to learn later, and what I'm about to share, is that tremendous energy and focus, if you have the wrong form, not that there's a right form, but if you have a specific form of the MAOA gene mutation, it will lead to both tremendous energy and focus that then can get depleted really fast. So This has to do with something that the MAOA gene mutation isn't just like you have the mutation or you don't. You can have no mutation, then you can have a fast version of the mutation where it processes your neurotransmitters too fast, causing you to crave things like a dopamine hit, because your dopamine, it gets released in the brain, and then it's almost like you have a dump truck that's coming too regularly to take out the trash. Although it's not trash, it's like it's gold, but it's coming too frequently and like trying to clean up stuff. And so your dopamine is just flying out of your brain, where your brain actually wants some amount of dopamine to just be hanging out there. So that's fast MAOA. And then you can have slow MAOA. So it's the opposite. Your brain is not processing out your transmitters fast enough. You're going to get a buildup of dopamine, and this can lead to anxiety and poor sleep when you eat a big meal, being really sensitive to things. Sensitive to your environment, sensitive to stressors, because you get something that releases a small amount of dopamine and it just lingers there. And then if you have another thing that releases a small amount of dopamine, it starts to pile up. Now, you might identify with both of those experiences, but for the sake of focusing on the MAOA gene mutation that has the highest correlation with ADHD, that's the fast MAOA gene mutation, where that dopamine is just flying out of your brain way too fast. And you can see, I'm actually really grateful that the ADHD community talks so much about dopamine, because hopefully that's like a familiar concept to you, that it's a dopamine dysregulation is thought to be a key component of getting ADHD symptoms. And a fast MAOA literally depletes you of dopamine irregularly fast. Now, here's a list from Dr. Ben Lynch's book of signs of a fast MAOA. So it's more than ADHD. Here's some other things that could be going on if you have a fast MAOA gene mutation. You've been diagnosed with ADHD. Major depression is common in your family. You're prone to depression and lack of desire, again, because that dopamine is getting depleted super fast. So it's you're not able to maintain interest or motivation in things. You find that chocolate gives you a great mood lift. Alcoholism is present in your family, and or you tend towards smoking or alcohol addiction. You can have a feeling that you're addicted to carbs. You do better when you eat more protein, because protein has a slow release of calories, and that slow release can help if you're burning through your dopamine. You need slow release sources of dopamine, or really slow release sources of dopamine can really help you maintain more consistent levels. So protein. You achieve a better mood after eating carbohydrates, but the improved mood doesn't help your focus or attention. You fall asleep quickly, but wake up earlier than you prefer. You tend to become more aggressive than you like. It can take you a while to slow down, and then you can focus for a long time. So it can come with both, where you're getting these dopamine hits, but then they're depleting. But if you focus enough, like deep enough, then you get that really strong dopamine, like you're really interested in something. So health stuff, I tend to get really interested in, but I really don't like house related things, like learning how, like it'd be really, really, really hard for me to remodel or like redesign a room currently, because I don't have a lot of skills for it. And it would just feel like nails on a chalkboard for me to figure out how to like cut wood and like paint it. And so even though I love watching DIY videos, it's not a good idea for me. But for some of you listening, maybe you love doing DIY stuff, or it's working in your garden and time just passes by. It's because you're getting that dopamine consistent output. Okay, so that is kind of the background on some of the scientific stuff. What's going on with the MAOA gene? What systems is it impacting, which is mainly your neurotransmitters, dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin. Now the question is, how do you support this gene? What's going on? How does it, if it's a normal gene but it's acting dirty, what causes that? And if it's a dirty gene, like if it's actually a gene mutation, how do you still support it? Great question. I'm so excited. This is my favorite part. Number one, and honestly the biggest one here in terms of the most number of ideas I'm going to give you, is reduce toxins. Why toxins? It's because toxins cause stress in the body. And when there's stress, then your MAOA gene goes on like bananas. And so stress is not just psychological stress, although that is included in this category. It's also can be biochemical stress and physical stress. So there's like three main types of stress, guys. So one big source of stress, which is a biochemical stress source, is eating foods you're sensitive to. So I recommend you do not assume you are not sensitive to foods, right? If you are having focus problems, if you're having weight gain problems, if you're having acne problems, if you're having sleep problems, if you're browsing the internet thinking, maybe I have leaky gut. Like if you're going through any of that process right now, you could have food sensitivities and not actually have any GI issues. That means no bloating, no gas, nothing that feels like, oh, your tummy hurts. You can actually have a lot of food sensitivities and they're creating neurological symptoms. The number one category of symptoms that gluten sensitivity is not GI. It's not like, oh, my tummy hurts after I eat wheat. It's neurological. It's I can't focus, I can't think, I can't recall words, brain fog, poor memory, everything that's neurological include, like mood instability. No, I was trying to remember one. Mood instability, all of that is included in symptoms for food sensitivity. So I would never assume that you don't have a food sensitivity. I would do a test. And the test I recommend is the Zoomer test by Vibrant America. It's the test that we use in our program, the Better Belly Blueprint. It is the best test out there. I will warn you though, a lot of people mark up this test hundreds of dollars if you buy them from their website. So a wholesale pricing for the Zoomer as of the recording of this episode is $480. So if somebody's trying to charge you $600 or $800 for it should be a bundle, a Zoomer bundle, where you're getting 4 different types of testing. And then they're also adding on 90 foods of like IgG, IgA. It's like literally the best deal out there for food sensitivity, and includes permanent food sensitivities and temporary food sensitivities. I could go on about this test. I don't want to clog up this episode with it, but that is the test I recommend. And if you want to get it, I do recommend you go to betterbellytherapies.com/training, watch our video on the Better Belly Blueprint, and you can get that lab wholesale pricing, and including a bunch of other labs wholesale price. When you join the Better Belly Blueprint, I teach you how to analyze your labs, how to know exactly what protocols to put together to help heal yourself. And you can now know what foods you're sensitive to. But eating a food you're sensitive to, even if you're eating clean, maybe you're like, I eat lots of fruits and veggies and I don't eat processed foods and I cook fresh meals and all that. If you're eating a food you're sensitive to, I don't care if it's gluten or dairy or corn, those are the 3 most common ones, but it could be green peppers, whatever. It's going to cause inflammation and stress your body and stress your MAOA gene, which is going to create more of those MAOA gene symptoms. Next big thing is going to be chronic physical and emotional stress. So common things I'm seeing with women and moms is sleep problems, like sleep deprivation. So if your kids are having sleep problems, hire a sleep consultant. Do not let that fester. My daughter was having sleep problems despite us doing our best to research, like, what are the, healthy ways to help your child learn how to sleep. And we got one sleep consultation appointment and we figured out what was wrong, and it fixed everything. And it was better for us, better for her. And so just swallow your pride. It's not going to actually cost that much to get one appointment, and maybe you need a couple, but it solves your sleep problem. That's worth a lot of money. So if you're having sleep problems, if you're being sleep deprived due to your kids waking you up, whether that's, whatever age it is, whatever reason it is, they need to be helped. So, but hiring a sleep consultant can be really helpful. You can check your kids for mouth breathing. Just literally after they're asleep, go in and see if they're breathing through their mouth. Mouth breathing can lead them to have a lot of sleep problems that will cause them to wake up and not feel rested. And that will then, of course, they wake you up. And check yourself for mouth breathing. Do your lips feel dry in the morning? Is your tongue dry in the morning? Do you get cavities? Do you have acid reflux? Do you snore? And that'd be more like a partner thing. And if you don't snore, I have so many clients who are like, well, I don't snore. I don't have breathing airway issues. Like, yes, no, that does not mean that you don't have airway issues. I do recommend you find somebody called an orofacial myofunctional therapist, OMT. Just literally type OMT near me in Google, and you can find somebody who can work with you and evaluate you for things like a hidden tongue tie, poor or orofacial myofunctional development, meaning the development of your tongue and your jaw and your maxillary, like the roof of your mouth essentially, which can impact your sinuses. If you want to know more about this, I highly recommend checking out episode 48 of the Better Belly podcast, where I interviewed my friend Madison Scott, who is an OMT, on just learning more about what that is. So if you've never heard of it and you don't feel rested when you wake up in the morning, you snore, or you find that your mouth's open when you wake up in the morning, your lips are dry, you have brain fog, memory problems, whatever, all that going on, it could be a poor orofacial malfunctional development problem. So go check out episode 48. It's also linked in the show notes. Some other things you can do to help with sleep, especially if you have fast MAOA gene mutation, is eat protein and fat before bed. This is like peanut butter, eggs, nuts, cheese. I have a dairy-free, if you're dairy-free, I have an episode on 3 dairy-free foods that you can eat for creamy cheeses, sauces, and pizza. And I'm not talking about like vegan cheese. I'm talking about real cheese. So go check out episode 171, and I also have it linked in the show notes. Almond flour crackers, which are because they're made with almonds, they're not as high in carbs and they have more fiber and protein in them. Eating some almond flour crackers with some cheese or like peanut butter, or even that boiled egg or something right before you go to bed, it's going to give you consistent energy release when you're sleeping at night, so that you don't wake up in the middle of the night, because that's a problem that people can have with the fast MAOA gene, is waking up in the middle of the night, needing to eat something and going back to bed, or finding that eating something helps them go back to sleep. Other things that can create a lot of physical stress is going to be being sedentary or overworking out. HIIT exercises, so high intensity interval exercises. If you enjoy the HIIT workouts or working out really intensely, great, it's probably fine. But I find that a lot of clients that I have are like, I feel stressed when I work out, but they feel that they have to do these really intense workouts, or they're a pansy, or they will never get strong. And that's not true. And so if you're doing an exercise that makes you anxious, that makes you stressed as you do it, and I don't just mean like, oh, your heart rate's up stressed. I mean like you're just like really on edge doing it. It's not a good work. It's too intense for you. Likely it's not a good workout for you. And then of course, vice versa, being super sedentary is stressful to the body. Literally walking 10 minutes before and after meals can help immensely with not only digesting food and insulin levels for digesting food, but which is going to help balance your blood sugar, which is going to help lower stress levels in your body, but also you get that 10 minutes before and after meals, and that can help with getting some movement into your day. And then emotional stress, that can be like demands at home and work. I generally think, especially if you know your ADHD, it's great to have a place and a way to develop systems and support. I highly recommend the Motherhood and ADHD podcast for support and just community, having emotional support, and also learning ADHD friendly systems. I had the host of the Motherhood and ADHD podcast, Patricia Sung, on the podcast last week, and she was great. You can go check out that episode. It's going to be episode 213. And she just gives a lot of great tips and tricks. So check out her podcast, check out the episode, find support. And that can really help with emotional stress. But also stressors can be things like loss of loved ones, loneliness, isolation, grief, changing jobs, moving houses, moving to a new city. And some of that it's just going to happen. Like as you lose somebody, maybe it's even a pet that what you were really close to, that's a stressor, and you want to do things that help you move through the grief. You're not going to like go through it faster, or like you don't want to just push it under the rug, but be able to just give yourself time and allotment of like, I'm going to go find a counselor and spend some time once a month or twice a month, whatever, getting counseling and really giving yourself space for that. Because if you don't deal with it, it's going to leave some of that emotional stress chronically there. Now, the next part, or the next thing, is going to be dealing with biochemical stress. This is my personal favorite because I find it is underrated. The reason this whole podcast focuses primarily on biochemical stress is that there's so much confusion and chaos out there. Lots of people agree, like for emotional stress, like yes, I should get support, and yes, I should get counseling, and people generally know what to do, and it's just more a matter of finding a community that feels right, finding something that feels financially doable or fits into your schedule, or just getting up the gumption to say you're going to go do it. But biochemical stress, people literally don't know about. We think we don't have. We're like, I'm not sensitive to any foods. Psh, I don't have a parasite. Psh, like, I don't have any heavy metals. Or we kind of do preventative stuff like, oh, it's really cool right now to get a Berkey water filter, but you're not actually dealing with current heavy metals you have in your body. Because, oh, I don't have heavy metals. I don't have copper toxicity. I don't have any arsenic in my body. And that can often be not true. And that's what's driving bloating, constipation, diarrhea, brain fog, ADHD symptoms like poor focus, poor memory, anger, irritability, mood swings, looking at eczema, acne, rashes, autoimmune conditions. Autoimmune conditions don't pop out of nowhere. They show up because there's inflammation and the body is reacting to it chronically. So if you get rid of or massively reduce chronic inflammation, autoimmune conditions can become very quiet. They call that remission. So there are, like, if you have chronic headaches, chronic migraines, eye pain, ear pain, tinnitus, there's something biochemically going on with you. So some things to look into. It's going to be parasites, C. diff, and OMG C. diff. I have a whole episode on it. Episode 441, anxiety, depression, or ADHD, one reason to check your gut. C. diff stops the conversion from dopamine to norepinephrine. So your dopamine and norepinephrine aren't balanced, and that's going to create as many problems for you as simply dopamine becoming too depleted. Problems like difficulty losing weight, difficulty focusing, difficulty with motivation, difficulty with memory. H. pylori, which is another bacteria, hangs out in the stomach. Heavy metals, mold toxicity, which is super bad for an ADHD brain, or really any brain. You can get a lot of ADHD symptoms with mold toxicity, but your ADHD symptoms can just significantly worsen with mold toxicity. Leaky gut, which can be caught. With leaky gut, the question isn't, do I have it? The question is, what caused it? Because if you're having symptoms in your body, in your skin, in your in pain levels, in focus, in GI issues. If you're having these issues, you have leaky gut. It's a guarantee. The question is, what caused it? Because leaky gut doesn't happen spontaneously, and it's not just because you eat Oreos. It's because there's, like, Oreos is not enough to just completely demolish your gut lining. You want to be looking at pathogens that like I listed, food sensitivities, toxins like heavy metals, etc. And I teach you all the tests. I give you all the tests you need, or access to ordering all the tests you need, and learning how to analyze them yourself in my program, the Better Belly Blueprint. Go to betterbellytherapies.com/training, and I have a really quick video. It's literally shorter than the length of your favorite TV show. I have a quick video on how the program works and why our clients get such good results, and how it's going to just save you time and money to do that process rather than trying to DIY it. You get labs at wholesale price. You get lifetime group coaching. And if you want me to do your process, you're like, I don't want to analyze my labs, I don't want to have to learn any of that, we have a VIP option where I will work with you one-to-one, and we can figure out what's going on there. All right, so that finishes the reduce toxins, which was a big section. Another one's going to be balance your blood sugar / caloric input. So for fast MAOA, Dr. Ben Lynch typically recommends eat protein, fat, and carbs with every meal, because you're looking for both fast release energy, which is carbs, and then slow release energy, which is fat and protein, to get consistent dopamine and norepinephrine release. And remember, what the combination of protein, fat, and carbs you're eating, you don't want to eat foods you're sensitive to in those categories. Because even if you're eating fat, carbs, and protein at every meal, if you're eating at every meal or one meal a day type thing, a food you're sensitive to, you're keeping those inflammation levels up, and you're still not supporting your body in the fast MAOA gene the way you need to. Other things to keep in mind related to food is that if you have PCOS, if you have insulin resistance, if you have diabetes type 1 or 2, you can do better with even fewer carbs because your body is essentially sensitive to carbs. It's not processing the sugars that come from it super well because of the insulin resistance. And so eating a even higher fat protein situation might be better for you than eating as many carbs as Dr. Ben Lynch is recommending. So that's why every body is unique and there's different layers of what's going on. Are you female? Are you pregnant? Are you menstruating? Do you have PCOS? Do you have insulin resistance? Do you have a parasite? Do you have a fast MAOA gene? These all play roles in how effective certain strategies are. And again, those biochemical toxins like parasites, heavy metals, etc., if those aren't dealt with, it makes everything else much less effective, which is super discouraging. And then makes you feel like nothing's working. So if you do feel that way about your life and your health, that you work really hard to make certain changes and then it doesn't really affect you very much or as much as you were hoping, definitely want to check out your biochemical sources of stressors that doctors can't find with the testing they have available to them. Now, the last thing is supplements. This is a pretty short category because if you have fast MAOA gene, the biggest thing is that you are going to want to have glutathione because glutathione typically is going to get demolished faster with the fast MAOA gene, and it's an indirect depletion. This is the sciencey part of it, if you want to know. So when you have fast MAOA gene and you're stressed, and remember, stress isn't just emotional, it's everything here. It's biochemical, it's the diet you're eating, it's not eating protein and fat, it's eating too many carbs, it's eating foods you're sensitive to, it's moving too much, too little, all of that. When you have that stress, the fast MAOA gene is going to produce extra hydrogen peroxide as you are processing out all the dopamine and norepinephrine. And this will, when hydrogen peroxide is produced, it will deplete glutathione. And glutathione is supposed to protect you against things like heavy metals, toxins, non-metal toxins like parabens and phthalates, and biotoxins like mold, parasites, H. pylori, etc. So I share the glutathione that I recommend, plus a whole way to protect your liver and help your body detox toxins in my liver protocol, which you can get at betterbellytherapies.com/liver or click the link in the show notes. So that is it. I hope that was fast and also slow at the same time. It gave you some nice depth of understanding the MAOA gene. Maybe it's had some light bulbs go off of things that sounded familiar to you. Maybe a lot of the signs that I shared about the fast MAOA gene feels similar. Like, wow, there is a lot of major depression in your family. You've been diagnosed with ADHD. You do better when you eat more protein, things like that. You can always check out Dr. Ben Lynch's book, Dirty Genes, if you want to know more about the other genes he talks about. I just think he's a genius when it comes to talking about genes, and I found that his book was super approachable. I gave you lots of links on different resources, everything from the Motherhood and ADHD podcast to my liver protocol to joining my program and finding all the biochemical toxins that nobody else is going to be able to find, at least in the conventional medicine setting, in the literally cheapest and fastest way that I know of, that I'm not seeing anyone else do it in this succinct of a way. And so go and check out all these things. I hope these resources are super helpful for you. If you missed any of them, need any help jogging your memory, I have all of these links in the show notes. And I'll see you guys on Thursday for our next episode. Hey friend, I hope you loved this episode. If you've been a fan for a while or newly loving this podcast, can you do me a favor? Drop into Apple Podcasts and leave me a review. When you leave a review, you do so much. You help me know you're listening. You can tell me what you're loving so I know what to make more of. And you help others by boosting this podcast so other people like you can find the podcast too. I mean, it's a win-win-win, right? So if you want a way to pay it forward, just go to Apple Podcasts or click the link in my show notes and leave a rating and review. And if you want some more free stuff, just head over to my free Facebook group, betterbellytherapies.com/Facebook, and you can get access to all of my free support for you, including some Facebook group exclusive stuff like my podcast episode vault, where you can search the Better Belly podcast by topic and find exactly what you need to expedite your healing. I cannot wait to see you in there. Catch you guys next week.